Alright, so just earlier today I finished building my brand new mid-range system, and currently we have a Radeon RX 9060 XT, the 16GB version, and I've got a 7600X CPU, 6-core processor, and 32GB of DDR5 6000 megatransfers per second CL30. Not much else I can show you here. So I was very excited to test my new mid-range system that I bought for the channel, that I built for the channel. And the first game that I decided to try was Mafia, and I was very, very excited until I saw the frame rate. Oh boy. All right, so currently we are at, sorry, I got two keyboards here in front of me. Things might get a little bit hectic here. So currently we're at 1080p on the Epic preset native resolution. It's using TSR. The game does support DLSS4 and FSR4, as well as XSS, Frame Generation, all that kind of stuff. So we'll be testing a few things, right? And also the game takes your desktop resolution. So the desktop, or actually, if the desktop resolution is set to 2560, it'll actually scale. It says there that it uses spatial scaling. So anyway, I just set the desktop resolution 1080p to test 1080p here, and we're on the Epic preset, and things aren't looking so great here. It's Unreal Engine 5.4, and we're not hitting 60 frames per second, like not in this villa at all, dropping into 41. I'm not going to be wasting too much time testing this. I do think the Epic preset is way too heavy. Even on my 5080 at 1440p, it drops below 60 at times. So just going to drive it around a little bit here. You can see even outside the villa dropping into the high 40s, mid 40s. So the game is very demanding. What I love about it though is the handling of this old car seems to be extremely period accurate. I think it's brilliant. All right, so anyway, we're not getting 60 frames per second here, even though my brand new mid-range system had quite a lot of potential. This game just broke it. All right, so if we tried the high preset, that's not high. There we go. So high enforces quality upscaling, so we'll just not use that, but we will use FSR4. All right, so it does look a lot better than TSR. So FSR4 on the high preset, 1080p native. So just FSR-AA basically. And this is not what I was expecting. And that's definitely not right either. So let's just see. I think frame generation might be enabled here. All right. So the presets also enable motion blur. So don't get too confused about that. Right, so here we are with FSR, well, just on the high preset with FSR-AA, so native 1080p, and we're getting, I mean, 80-ish frames per second. Yeah, it's going to drive to the villa again and see what the frame rate there is. Previously, my testing, it actually did drop below 60 as well, which is not ideal. You do spend quite a bit of time here in the villa as well, right? This is your home base basically. So I do think that it is kind of important that it performs well enough here, but seeing 60, it maintains 60 frames per second. That's actually perfectly fine. And you can see we are using around 7.5 gigabytes of VRAM here, and the visuals look okay. I think it's just, it is a bit too heavy for what's presented, right? The performance is definitely not, the visuals do not justify the performance. That's what I was trying to get at. All right, so let's see if we then just kick on or go back to the Epic preset, and we're going to enable FSR quality. Let's see if we can get close enough to 60 frames per second. As you can see, motion blur gets enabled. Don't know why people or devs include that in the presets. Anyway, so this is actually not terrible. I forgot to capture the lows. Sorry about that. All right, so it still drops below 60 frames per second. Yeah, which is, it is disappointing because, you know, we are now rendering internally at 720p, upscaling to 1080p. Yes, it is FSR4, and yes, it does look acceptable. It's just, I don't know, we're getting like RT Ultra type of performance here, typically what you'd get in Cyberpunk with RT Ultra, right? So, and the game doesn't support hardware lumen, it's only software lumen. So I think it's definitely heavier than it than what the visuals present. Alright, so 70-ish frames per second on the Epic preset. Now, yes, the Epic preset, I do suggest people not use it at all. In pretty much every game, it's just way too heavy. The differences between the high preset and the Epic preset are very negligible in most cases, right? But the performance hit is quite substantial. Alright, so maintaining just above 60 frames per second here. Not a lot of stuttering here. Like the frame times are a little bit inconsistent at times, but it's not really stuttering. So I have seen a few reports of people complaining about stuttering. I haven't seen a lot on the 7600X here. Alright, so the game does have traversal stutter every now and again, but definitely not as frequent as a lot of other Unreal Engine 5 games. So FSR quality, we're going to leave that enabled. We're just going to drop down to the high preset. I have to enable FSR anyway. So FSR and motion blur off, and then these are the settings, right? Now, I don't think you can... well, you can't change the global illumination quality lower than this in-game. I think you have to be in the main menu. Or maybe it is just stuck at high. Not sure. Alright, so this is actually now getting decent frame rate here. Just below 100. Going to run into the square here. See, it drops into the mid-80s. So not terrible. And if we then kick on FSR Frame Generation, we should get a decent high enough frame rate output to max out like a 144 hertz panel, right? All right, so not going to test too much of that. I'm going to enable frame generation here, and yes, I'm going to do it on the high preset instead of the Epic preset, just because I do think the Epic preset is just way too heavy. All right, so frame generation enabled here. Going to drive around again, 200 frames per second. Yeah, not too terrible. And let's see what happens when we drive. The only reason why I drive a little bit is just to test for traversal stutters. Maybe I'm not going far enough to actually trigger traversal stutters, but I don't think so. I think we would have seen a traversal stutter if there was one. So I mean, there was that blip on the frame time graph, though it really did not translate to a stutter that I could see or feel. The lows also didn't dip that much. We're sitting at 89. Sure, the 0.1% lows are a little bit lower, but I mean, I think that's pretty typical of an Unreal Engine 5 game. You do get those blips every now and again. Sometimes you can't explain it away. Sometimes it's a traversal stutter, sometimes it's shader compilation stutter, sometimes it just stutters. Like, that's just how it is. Alright, so I think that's enough for 1080p. I think this is basically the settings that I personally would use if I was driving a 1080p monitor. So I'm going to quit now and just set the desktop to 1440p so we can test 1440p. Alright, so here we are at 1440p, Epic preset, and motion blur is on again. Alright, so Epic preset, and I did test now in the main menu. The lowest it'll go is high. So if global illumination is causing any issues, the lowest it goes high. That's kind of strange. All right, so 1440p native. This is not going to go well. 30 frame 29. Oh boy. All right, so as expected. I mean, we saw dips, we saw major dips at 1080p as well. So, I mean, this was to be expected. It's very heavy, unfortunately. So, all right, not going to be testing too long. Yeah. Okay, so let's just drop this down to the high preset. I think, obviously, there are settings that you can fine tune here, right? But the settings that I found to be the most demanding are global illumination and shadows. So, you can just drop those to low or to high, and you should get a decent bump in the frame rate. But I just test presets on this channel, right? We want to do FSR native on the high preset, right? And also there's really no difference in performance between FSR4 and TSR if you use the same resolution, right? So just disabling motion blur here again. So on the high preset here, 1440p native. Let's see. All right, so we went from 30 to 45. So we got a decent 50% boost to our frame rate, but still going 30 frames per second starting point plus 50% gets you 45. So anyway, all right, so going to drive out here. As I said, this is definitely one of the more demanding areas. The town areas, especially middle of town, they are demanding as well. And as you can see, driving down here, we are we're dropping into the 50s here. We're seeing 50 there. Again, I do think that they spent quite a lot of time getting the driving right. I do enjoy driving in this game. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of things they did right. The attention to detail is definitely noticeable. The finer details, you'll see hoof prints in the dirt, the cars, the horses, everything. They have definitely spent a lot of effort on that. Just the performance is a little bit subpar. Just my opinion, right? It's Unreal Engine 5 and it is what it is. All right, so we're not going to see anything playable really there. There are people that target 30-40 frames per second. No problem with that at all. I do try and target at least 60 frames per second. So those are the settings I try and show on my channel here. So let's do just still on the high preset with FSR set to quality. This should get us 60 frames per second at all times, right? I believe. We're not CPU bound. You can see GPU usage is 98%. Although our GPU power did drop a little bit. We saw 170 at some point like there, right? So there are still some heavier areas. And then one other thing I want to ask, if there are some regular streamers among some of my viewers, what do you guys use for a ring light or a, what do you call it, key light? I've got this ring light that I spent, it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't expensive either. But every time I use it, like my right eye starts itching. So funny. And it's almost immediate. I think it might be something to do with the refresh of the the refresh rate, right, of the light, whether it's 59 hertz or 60 hertz. Maybe it's something to do with that. But every time I use it, it just, I don't know, it starts irritating my eye. And if I use it for long periods of time, my eye actually starts turning red, which is weird. All right, so this is definitely playable. 70-ish frames per second, 1440p, high preset, FSR set to quality. It looks good because it is FSR4. Sorry, you can't see the hair. Let me just show you. There is quite a big difference between TSR and FSR when it comes to sharpness. TSR, the hair, you can actually see the hair strands individually. It looks like it's got gel, but I think it's because it's over sharpened. So what I want to do now is just want to test FSR frame generation, because FSR frame generation is actually quite good as well in this game. I think when it comes to frame pacing, it's one of the better implementations I've seen recently. So all right, so there it kicks in nicely. So 150-ish frames per second. Going to do the drive around, then I'll end up at the villa. Just want to see what the frame times look like. But it feels quite okay. Sorry if I'm licking my lips. I do it subconsciously, but my lips are very dry. It's winter here. It's very cold, and it's also very dry. Okay, so 130. I think if we can maintain 120, it'll be perfectly fine, because that means you get a base frame rate of 60. Input latency I don't think is that much of an issue in this game. So frame generation is, if it looks good and the frame pacing is good, then I've got no issues using it at all, especially in a game like this. even at 120 frames per second. Like I typically try to aim for at least 90 frames per second before I enable frame generation. I know it's not always possible, and I do think in this game 60 base is probably fine. Right, one other thing that I did notice is that this CPU, the 7600X, it boosts quite high, right? So we're seeing 5425 megahertz, 5450 actually, but it also uses quite a lot more power than I expected. Right, I guess it is a 105 watt TDP part, so I mean it is almost using 105 watt most of the time. Yeah. All right, so I think I just want to mention the GPU that I'm using. It's actually an XFX SWFT 9060 XT. I bought it because it's white, and I think it performs very well here. I mean, not in the game, but you can see it boosts pretty high, 3.3 gigahertz. It's staying at around 50C. Yes, sure, it's a 3-fan version and it's only doing 180 watts, but I'm quite happy with the model. It's quiet. It performs quite well in other games. All right, and I think, yeah, that's basically all I wanted to talk about today. So on that note, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and as always, we hope to see you in the next one.